You see, there is a huge audience for genres like funk, which basically cancels the rules of compression and distortion. Not to mention the whole EDM world where everything you learned about true peak and dynamics goes out of the window. So why there are still people that blast those tunes all day? What if I told you that they don't really care about how you mix, but what you mix? Today, I'm about to show you some cool tips to come up with exciting arrangements that complement a well-balanced mix. First, let's focus on technical side things and talk about dynamics. As you see, once I go through my session with Level's dynamic range meter, the track stays at 10 on verse, then goes to around 12 in build-up, and reaching its maximum, that goes to 8.4. The difference may not be dramatic, but it helps to engage the listener by contrasting those parts. First, and probably the easiest way to differentiate those is by adding or removing instruments. My intro has a melody made with just an arp and keys, acting like a lead line to support the vocal. Although it's a couple of layers, they are way more plucky and delicate compared to the sustained bass and lead lines as we go into drop section. With a good old electronic dance music fashion, the track is building up towards the drop. The vocal line gets dance, plus I also started to introduce some drums. They are muted a bit, but we will talk about it later, since, as you can see, overall dynamic range is actually getting a little bit bigger. Yeah, it might be a little bit counterintuitive, but there is a reason behind it. The sustained reeds in the intro took more dynamic range, but as I want to have my drop hit really hard, leaving it there would not give the effect I want. If you have no idea which instruments to add or leave, a good hint would be to have a reference track ready, but instead of adding it directly to your session, try using it inside reference plugin. Chances are you work in a similar or even the same tempo, so instead of highlighting arrangement parts, comparing and highlighting again, try the mirror function. Just like the name suggests, it mirrors the playhead inside your DAW. Then a level line will give you hints on which tonal elements you're lacking. Okay, but enough of me talking about instrument choice, since it varies depends on the genre you make. Let's touch on some universal tools that apply to all arrangements. Starting with drums, I mentioned they are muted in this build part, and that's due to the filter. I'm slowly decreasing the low pass to introduce them inside the mix. But it doesn't need to be just a filter. Just like in case of this main lead, I also made a volume automation. It's not necessarily dramatic, but once I switch it off into context, there is simply too much going on in this part. The creative side of automation can be both using delay or reverb throws, but also controlling effects to fit them exactly how you want them to be. For a reverb and delay part, I did a quick little automation here where the wet knob of this reverb is increasing after every part of this melody. That basically creates this signature reverb flow, and I really like this effect. Here on the other hand, I use the classic sidechain effect, but as you can see, I'm automating its length, or rather the sync value. We can even try some more extreme changes to show you what I mean. This all gives a cherry on top, even if it's not as dramatic. But speaking of dramatic, I think we can try something more extreme here. Let's just try to use the same utility device from the build-up and maybe play with panning like this. And then try to automate gain to get that stuttery effect. I really like the idea, but it also brings me to some pitfalls of playing with dynamic arrangement. You don't want to make overly complex shifts in your arrangement like every 10 seconds or even less, because it can also cause some ear fatigue, just like a stagnant and boring mix. Plus, no matter how cool those effects are, they can distract your listeners from the real musical value. But those concepts I mentioned here apply more to a whole song. If you want to learn more how to build excitement and add some ear candy from the ground up, then definitely check this video. And I guarantee you that combining those two will make day and night difference.